basically I agreed to an oath that would not reveal where they were, who they were, anything that would link anyone to be able to find them again. The last thing they need is to be found again. Unfortunately, a journalist got their hands on this real life story. You know, anytime murder happens, especially something that's unusual, bizarre, attracts journalists, and then they want to create a story out of it. Well, for a long time, since it happened when I was 4 or 5, I thought it was just a dream. Until that film came out decades later and I realised it was all real, it all happened. Because everything that I told the journalist, it's too specific. It was verbatim what happened and what was said that was incorporated into the story. And then on top of that, there were things that were warped and twisted, things that I could look at and immediately go, that's not what I remember happening. It didn't happen this way, it happened that way. That they had changed for film. And you would think that if it was just a wild case of deja vu, that you wouldn't sit there and go, well, no, it didn't happen that way, it happened this way. You know, you just sit there and go, oh yeah, it seems familiar, you know. So I had to rule out deja vu, I had to rule out a dream. And really all that was left was that, okay, this is an actual memory. It really did happen. Now, at this point in my life, I'd already, at least a decade, been practicing ancient paganism, and by now, nothing phases me. You know, by now, I don't have to work as hard as I used to. Because a lot of things, you know, you witness it, you're a part of it, other people witness it too, and you're still sitting there going, I'm insane. But once stuff like this has happened to you over and over and over again, and it's been thrown in your face that many times, you really think about it. I mean, in the past 10,000 years or so, we've always believed, and it's only been the past, you know, couple hundred years where we haven't. And in fact, certain tribes never, ever stop believing in the kind of physical, tangible magic that I'm going to be talking about today. There's two different ways to be, you know, born as a shifter normally. Sometimes it goes by blood, hereditary. Other times it's like me, where you're born out of a normal, quote, normal family, and yet it's your spirit that deems you a shifter. Your spirit is, you know, you would be a shapeshifter no matter what womb you're born out of. And in that case, if everyone's normal and you're the only one that's a shifter, a lot of times you don't even know. And if your chakras are too imbalanced, even if you have the potential to shift, you never will. When I was young enough, you know, that I could shift a little bit about me, balanced enough that I could shift a little bit, and my parents saw it. Now, if you don't know, my family is fucking evil and I hate them. I hate my fucking family. If you haven't watched any other videos, I hate my family. That's part of why, big part of why I became pagan in the beginning. They belong to a neo-Nazical Abrahamic cult. They abused me my entire life. Many of the things that they did to me, I shouldn't have even survived. And I chalk it up to a bunch of protection, loads of protection from spirit guardians, guides, and maybe a wee bit of luck that I'm even sitting here telling you this story today. Many of the stories I never get an itch to say, but some stories like this one want to be told. And even if I don't want to tell them, I just have to tell them. It just feels like I should. And I guess one day maybe somebody needs to hear it. I don't know. It's a story that needs to be said when I get that itch to say it, I think. So that's what I'm going to say. So it starts out that my father just kind of abandons me with this man at the middle of nowhere, in a house in the middle of nowhere. He's self-sufficient. He has a farm with farm animals, and he's got streams and maybe even a spring that he's living off of. He's 100% self-sufficient. My father warns him that the moment that the man turns his back, I'll run away. And the man rolls his eyes and says, I'm kind of like, that I'm used to that, you don't have to tell me that kind of thing. So we get inside, and I think my father might be with a couple of his friends. I don't know, I can't remember, it's kind of fuzzy. Somebody asked the man, I'm just curious, how does it feel to be one of the richest men in the world, and then all of a sudden you're one of the poorest and you're nobody? And the man's answer, I'll never forget, his answer was, you know what, I kind of like it, it's peaceful. That's all he said. So my father belongs to this, like I said, religious cult. They want to annihilate, literally annihilate, kill off anyone who's of magic and anyone who admires it or studies it or anything. And basically, it doesn't stop there. They're also the typical, what you would expect, sexist, racist, all that as well. And because I was never accepted into that family, I never trusted them. I never trusted a word they said. And I just kind of assumed that what they believed was never true. And, most of what they believed, I never believed in anyway. The only things that I did believe in was stuff they told me over and over and over again, like I'm a devil child, that I'm evil, that I'm a witch, that anything bad about me. They had temporarily brainwashed me to think that, but other than that, really, I didn't give a fuck what they said because they were always lying to me. So anyway, there's a lad on the couch and he's passed out, and I realised that the only time he wakes up, the man gives him something, and he tells him to either eat or drink something, and the lad looks at him like this, and then, very unwillingly, and then eventually just drinks it or eats it anyway, and then he's sedated again. The man looks at me and he tells me to take off my shoes and pull back my hair like this. And I noticed that the lad that's sleeping is wearing earmuffs and shoes, which I thought was very odd inside a hat. And so, especially on a couch. And so, the man is like sitting there looking at me like, and then he's like, you know what? I don't have to hide you. You're lucky. He has to stay inside. I don't have to hide you. You can help me. Help me with the chores outside. Come with me. I've got some things you can do. And he gets all excited because now he's got help. And actually, this man at least hasn't hurt me yet. I like being with him a lot better than I do with my mom and dad, because at least he hasn't hurt me yet. Maybe not the best man in the world, but so I actually was kind of having fun with it. And eventually, he's distracted with something, and the lad's got his earmuffs off, and I see him take his earmuffs off, and you can see that he's got ears, like animal ears. And then, he takes his shoes off, and the man comes running in thinking that I'm going to be frightened, and I wasn't frightened at all. And then he runs back to the phone and he starts talking on the phone in another room, and I overhear part of the conversation. I was trying to get the lad to tell me how he turned his ears and feet into that, and he said he couldn't control it. And that was about the time that the man just runs to the phone and he's saying stuff like, I don't even know that they know that some of them I don't think know that they can, or know what they are. And then he just kind of, that's about all I remember out that conversation. They were trying to figure out what triggered or didn't trigger something, and I don't know. I couldn't totally understand that. So anyway, one day I'm helping him outside, and I hear gunshots, and then he comes running and he's injured, and then tells me to wake up the lad that's sedated. But because he's sedated, he won't wake up, and at that time I run out of time and I don't have enough time to really hide him and me. So I panic and I just hide initially, and then I hear them walk in the house, and then I run. And as I'm running, I hear gunshots. And then eventually a guy that's hunting to survive because he doesn't have enough money to actually pay for food finds me. And this man has seen people like me before, because his son got killed, and his son kind of was like me. He found me acting like a wolf in the forest, even though I looked human, and he just knew that I was like his son, and he took me under his wing for a bit until he was able to, eventually, it was a long way, we had to walk, went through a lot of forests, but eventually he got me to child services. I was telling him the entire time how we need to go back and help that man and blah blah blah, and he was telling me, no, it's not safe, let me get you somewhere safe, and saying, but there's a man that he's really hurt, and so he told child services that. Child services told the police, and then the police thought that he had something to do with it, because eventually they had already found, by now they'd already found that body, probably. If not, they did after they told them that. And they thought that the man killed him, and I kept saying, no, he didn't. And I kept telling him, the hunter, you have to tell them the truth, you have to tell them what you know. And he says, they're not going to believe me, no one believes me. And I said, well, I don't, it's your only chance, you've got to tell them, they never let you go. And he just didn't believe that they would, but he said, I told him at the very end, I said, what you've got to lose? If they're going to keep you anyway, what have you got to lose? And that persuaded him to tell them the wild stories about me, about his son, about other things that he'd seen out in the forest while he was hunting. And he came back to me and he said, they're letting me go. They apparently believed me. And he thanked me, and he was on his way. Police come and talk to me, and they said, you told me that there was a child there, but we didn't find anyone in the house. All we found was a man out in the woodlands. We need you to tell us everything that you know, because we need to find that child. And I said, I don't trust you. I don't know which side you're on. He says, we're on the same side. And I said, really prove it to me. He says, we're the same. We're different but the same. We are different species. You're some kind of predator and prey together, which is rare. I've never seen it before. We're both shapeshifters. I said, well, prove it then. Turn into an animal. He says, I can't. The entire reason why we're in this in the beginning is because someone was selfish. A woman went to a man and never came home. She was supposed to come home to have the child, but she never came home. The man saw the child, and it revealed that we existed. The mess that she's caused will take many years to reverse. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to believe me. The story that he told and the way that he told it was a lot more profound than what I just said. And I believed him through the story alone. He made me a promise, an oath, never to reveal where they were. I told them all that I could, but I don't think they found the child. His body might have been dismantled, rid of evidence or something, I don't know. Maybe he did at the last minute get up and run and flee. Maybe he's looks like a deer now. Maybe he finally shapeshifted into a full deer and they just never found him. But I don't think he made it. That investigator knew what I was without me telling him. He could just sense it. Parents got away with it again. Played the worried parent card, picked me up from child services. I don't even know if they were even questioned about what happened, which really fucking pisses me off.